As we were talking about the concepts of oviparity, viviparity, and ovoviviparity, before we move ahead, let's understand each concept. Now, these three concepts are related to breeding. The type or the pattern of breeding a creature exhibits. For instance, oviparity refers to the reproductive strategy where the eggs are released, and there are two ways of fertilization. Either during mating, the male partner releases or showers these sperms over the egg and completes fertilization externally, or during mating the male individual, it releases its gamete, that's the sperm, within the reproductive tract of female, leading to fertilize the eggs that are released within the body of the female, and ultimately the female releases the fertilized eggs. So overall, when we see the release of eggs, may it be a fertilized eggs or unfertilized eggs, that is, let the fertilization be external or internal, the laying of egg, this process leads to a phenomena that is called as oviparity, and animals exhibiting this phenomena are called as oviparous animals, while exactly opposite is viviparity, where in oviparity release of egg or the animals lay the eggs. In viviparity, the breeding ends up in giving birth to young one. So basically, viviparity involves internal fertilization and with embryos developing within the female's reproductive tract. So ultimately, when the embryo is developed young one, the female will then give birth to the young one. So what's the difference between the oviparity and viviparity? Keep in mind, oviparity says the female lays the egg and the development is taking place externally, while viviparity says that it is a phenomena where the female develops the embryo within her body and give birth to the young one. So that's the major difference. Now just imagine something which is showing both the instances, oviparity as well as viviparity. Then we call it as ovoviviparity. What does that mean? Ovoviviparity means that the the phenomena is a combined aspect of the first part, that is oviparity, that says release of eggs, and the second part, that is giving birth to the young one. So what does that mean? That means the females, they release their eggs. Fertilization is internal. The eggs are fertilized, but these fertilized eggs, instead of getting released and developing externally, unlike oviparity, the female holds these fertilized eggs within her reproductive tract and allows developing in it inside her tract without releasing. So ultimately, when the embryos or the young one is developed completely, it is going to be released. That means ultimately the female is going to give birth to the young one. Something puzzled, right? Then why are we calling it as ovoviviparity? It can be viviparity also, right? Here there's a little difference. Now what's the difference? In viviparity, The embryo and the maternal tissues, they form a type of a bond which is called as a placenta. So, all the nourishment, nutrients that the developing embryo requires, it is directly released from the mother or the maternal body through the placenta to the fetal body. While ovoviviparity, it says that the maternal body has developed the eggs, has allowed the eggs to be fertilized within her body, has allowed the eggs to develop within her body. But there is no such placenta where the maternal tissue and the fetal tissue are contributed to develop the placenta that forms the bridge for passage of nutrients from the mother to the developing young one or the embryo. Then the question arises, then from where does this developing embryo gets its nourishment and nutrition? It is by the reserved yolk that is found in the egg. So, this reserved yolk will be utilized by the developing embryo, by the developing so all its nutrition would be utilized by this reserve from this reserved yolk, and the embryo is going to grow up into a young one, and later on this young one will be released from the female body. Since there is a combination of laying egg, that is developing egg, fertilization internal, development internal, and then ultimately giving birth, that these two combinations are united, or you can find these two concepts together. We now call it as this phenomena as ovoviviparity. The organisms are known as ovoviviparous. You can see there's a beautiful picture of a shark which belongs to ovoviviparous conditions, or it exhibits ovoviviparity, and so we call it as ovoviviparous. While viviparous example, almost all the placental, we have a group that is called as placental mammals. So in that one that belongs, you can see a very beautiful picture of an innocent elephant, baby elephant, that says that I belong to a group which is viviparous, or I have a phenomena of viviparity. Even humans, we are viviparous, and you name it, like lion, tiger, panther, leopard, cat, dog, all are viviparous. While all those aves, you can say, whether it's a hornbill, whether it's a parakeet, whether it's a parrot, whether it's our hen, everybody, they belong to oviparity.